says make it work. First and foremost, queasy meter for you. Is it a smokescreen when Chris Grier says that Austin Jackson will be our starting right tackle in 2023?
Oh my God. Listen to this, right? So like everyone knows it's smokescreen season. These pre-draft interviews with the GM, assistant GM, they're never going to give you any information. They're never going to tell you anything important. These guys have spent months, literal months, every single day trying to work through their strategy, trying to keep it as close to the vest as possible. But you think the first time they get in front of an audience, in front of a microphone, in front of a camera, they're going to spill the beans, spill their guts, and tell you exactly what their draft strategy is? Come on. These guys get paid millions of dollars to do this job. And whether you like him or not, Chris Greer's been doing a pretty darn good job in all facets of being a GM as of late. No, I do not think that Chris Grier is giving us his strategy for the right tackle position for the Miami Dolphins in 2023 on April 19th ahead of the draft. Does that mean they're going to draft a right tackle at pick 51? No. Does that mean they're going to draft a right tackle in round 3? No. But I also don't think it means that it is, etched in stone, written in ink, tattooed on my ass cheek that Austin Jackson is going to be the starting right tackle for the Miami Dolphins in 2023. If he is, so be it. We'll figure it out. We'll get through it. Hopefully that means we're bringing back a Brandon Shell or a DJ Fluker to save the day if need be. But no, I'm not freaking out right now. I'm not freaking out about Chris Greer's comments on Austin Jackson being the starting right tackle on April 19th when we are still 10 days away from the draft and what, like 5 months away from meaningful football games? Come on now.
You sound like me with the idea of, hey, the press conferences, you're not going to learn a single thing. However, something we did learn, I thought this was pretty interesting. It was Chosen Anderson's agent who reached out to the Miami Dolphins to discuss the deal, and they negotiated, they worked out some things and expectations. But outside of that, Chris Greer also mentioned said Wilson, and he mentioned that teams have called him about said Wilson. He ain't willing to trade. He's trying to do right by him. Marek, translate that.
I think Cedric Wilson is on the way out. He gone. When you say I'm trying to do right by the player, what you mean is we do not have a pathway for you to get meaningful snaps on this football team in 2023, which means we might not be actively shopping you right now, which they probably are. But you don't want to come out and say that. You look desperate. Nobody likes somebody who's desperate. You know what I mean? But he's not Cedric Wilson will not play meaningful snaps for the Miami Dolphins in 2023. That's how I interpreted that. I think they like Chosen Anderson, and the more I think about it, I really like Chosen Anderson as well. If he can be that decoy receiver that runs those 9 routes, takes the top off the defense, and lets Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill work the middle of the field, like Tua was so just adept at last year, just hitting those 15-yard ends and whatnot, those just middle of the field throws. He was so good at that. If Robbie Anderson, Chosen Anderson can take the top off, and Tyreek and Jalen can work that middle of the field, get the ball, and maybe finally create some yak, because there was this myth out there that the Dolphins or that Tua's good season was only because of the yards after catch that Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle produce. Go look at the stats. They're actually the worst team in terms of yak for 2022. But if we can get some more of that into this offense with how deadly accurate Tua Tagovailoa has been, and if that comes because Robbie Anderson, Chosen Anderson, it's so hard for me to call him Chosen Anderson. Like, listen, if your mama names you Chosen, then I'll call you that all day long. But if you name yourself Chosen, I got a problem with that. But either way, if he can take the top off the defense and let these guys create that yak, I think that adds another dimension to this Miami Dolphins offense, which was already a pretty potent offense as is last season. So I'm really kind of getting behind the idea of Chosen Anderson and Braxton Berrios being that number 3, number 4 receiver. And with how expensive Cedric Wilson's contract is, and the fact that he's not going to be the kick returner, the punt returner anymore because of Braxton Berrios, then yeah, he's on his way out. And you're not going to get a lot for him in return. It's just going to be one of those bad signings. Every team's got him. It's not a big deal. He'll go elsewhere. Maybe the Vikings want him. Maybe the Cowboys want him back. We don't know. But I think you're looking at a draft day trade, and I think Cedric Wilson has played his last down of football for the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, and not a bad player. I don't even think the contract's awful, but I mean, I think when you just sign someone like Tyreek Hill and that's not expected or part of your calculated
Yeah,
plan, it just throws a wrench in things. Hey, you mentioned Braxton Berrios. Chris Grier said he's expecting him to be the kick returner and play some slot. A
yeah.
little overreaction in terms of, hey, maybe it's not a sealed deal that it's their guy. Because the way he said some slot was a little interesting to me, just because it seems like there might be that might translate to something else.
Yeah, I caught that too. And I think if you read between the lines, I think they're really jazzed on this Chosen Anderson signing. And if he can keep his head on straight and he can be a solid locker room guy, I think those are your top three right there. I think you got Tyreek, Jalen, and Chosen, all extremely fast players, all players who can run the deep routes, but also can run those hitch routes, those in routes, those crossers, which Tua is so good at hitting. So that leaves Braxton Berrios as a number 4 receiver as long as everyone stays healthy. That's a big caveat with this team. That leaves Berrios as your number 4 receiver and your return specialist, where we've already talked about, we did a whole episode about it, how Braxton Berrios was an all pro returner just a couple seasons ago. So if you add that to your special teams unit, you improve that group, which needs improving as the 32nd ranked special teams unit last year. So you're already improving that unit there, and whatever you get from him in a receiving capacity, we'll take it. That's a bonus.
One more here. Let's talk a little Tua, your guy here.
I love Tua.
He's made himself a white belt. He's doing his jujitsu. He's working on falling. I think the key here, and I think the reason you do it is because not to learn these things, but to make them become your instincts. It's the
Yes.
fact you're not thinking about it, and that's kind of the key here. And he had a note that he said he was thinking about retirement, but ultimately wanted to come back to football. Everyone's making a deal out of that. Merrick, I'm here to tell you, and you can probably tell me the same thing. Everybody probably thinks about retirement every day. All right.
Oh, oh yeah.
We all want to retire. So let's not make a massive deal out of this. But
No,
what I want to
and
ask you,
go
go ahead.
ahead, go
Go ahead.
ahead, Jake. Well, what I
I
was
wanted
gonna
to
say, I was gonna say that Tua, um, for as much as we love Tua's play on the field, I would say he's not the most calculated individual in these press conferences. He's not the most well-spoken individual in these press conferences. And that's okay. That's all
Mhm.
right. You know, not everyone is good at everything. Tua's not the best speaker out there. That's all right. I think Tua was being honest though. He was telling you the truth. He was telling you that he had conversations with his parents. In Samoan culture, family is everything. So of course he's going to take the input from his mom, his dad, his new wife. He's got a new baby to think about, and those concussion issues are scary, especially when everyone around you and everyone you watch on national TV is telling you retire, 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 retire. Well, of course you're going to think about it. But he thought about it and quickly decided, no, I love football. I love playing football. And I really liked the part about him talking about wanting to stay in the league so that he can play when his son is old enough to watch him play and understand kind of the magnitude of that and what that means. And I can relate to that as well. I suffered a serious neck injury before either of my children were born. Um, and I had retired from professional wrestling for a handful of years when they were still really, really young. But as they got older and they got into professional wrestling, I realized how cool of an experience it would be for them and for me as well if they were able to watch me wrestle despite the risks that I would be taking if I did so. I have a double fusion in my neck. My C5 through C7 vertebrae in my neck are fused together. I have a broken vertebrae in my lower back right now that they can't fix. They're just not going to fix it. So I will have a broken back for the rest of my life. What did I do 2 Saturdays ago? I went out there, I had a professional wrestling match right here in Iowa in front of my 2 kids, and when I looked at their faces and I saw how they reacted to me coming out there, it was a surprise. They didn't know it was gonna happen. It was a complete
Oh,
surprise to
that's
them.
awesome.
When I saw their faces, when my entrance music hit and I hit the ring, it made it all worth it. And thankfully, I'm healthy enough today to come on and talk to you about Miami Dolphins football, but I get it. I completely get where Tua is coming from. I completely get his mindset. And the stuff that he's doing right now with the jujitsu, that stuff is important. People can scoff and laugh at that on Twitter as much as they want to. But again, in professional wrestling, I teach people how to fall while tucking their chin so they don't hit their head on the mat so they don't get concussions. And I was taught the same. And after doing it for 20 years consecutively at this point, I could fall anywhere. I could fall walking down my stairs right now. I could fall getting out to my car so I can go to my kids' baseball practice as soon as we're done with this live stream. And I would tuck my chin instinctively because that's what I've been doing for over half of my life. And I would not hit my head on the way down. And that's what Tua is trying to do right now. And anything that Tua can do to get better, he's been willing to do it over his first 3 seasons in the NFL. And this is just the next step. And I do think it's going to pay dividends for Tua and the Miami Dolphins as a result.